Thank you for joining us today. Today we have Kapil Sahni, the Chief Transformation Officer from Nissan Refinery and Petrochemicals, to explore the possible future of decarbonization. Before I start, Kapil, would you like to give a bit of an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. First of all, good afternoon, good morning to all the listeners. I'm Kapil Sahni, right now Chief Transformation Officer for Nissan Refinery in Vietnam. I come up with 20, 25 years of experience in the industry before before coming to Vietnam. I worked in multiple locations with Shell, and before that was supporting British Gas. So have been seeing this industry evolution over a period of time, and happy to share my observations, which may or may not align with the listeners as well. But I think it's good to have our own thought process, and then later on we all can discuss and see what's the best way forward, especially for our organizations, for the region, for the country, and also for the industry as well. So this is me. Thank you, Shamala. Thanks for inviting me. My pleasure to be here.
To kick things off, let's look at the big picture. So, from your vantage point, what are the key drivers and pressures shaping the decarbonization agenda for Asian downstream oil and gas sector?
Okay. Now, I think if you talk about decarbonization, that's quite an interesting topic. It's not that industry was not focusing on decarbonization, or countries were not focusing on carbon reduction, but I think in last couple of years, after the global leaders gave a stress on this subject, and somehow it's got highlighted, and everyone started focusing more. That also includes the elements of the every country taking up a target by 2030 or 2050, or few countries decided to go beyond as well. We need to on the decarbonization and its drivers. When we are talking about, I think first of all we need to understand the fact that decarbonization is a cost for the industry. I'm talking from an industry perspective. If we talk from a nature perspective, definitely it's a need of the hour. We know the risk what we are carrying for our coming generations, and definitely one of the thing which we should think about it and address, and start putting effort more religiously in that. Now, on the drivers, I personally put it in a two elements. One, I call it as a push element, and another one I call it as a pull element. Now, in terms of your push elements, definitely your global policies, global geopolitical situation, then your government's commitment on the net zero. As I said earlier, means every government has made their own commitment. Then we have also seen over a period of time, our investors, our financial institutions have also started putting up requirements related to EGS compliance, or emission disclosures, sort of a thing. And then the government's introducing your carbon pricing and the regulations which are already in place for many countries like China, Singapore, South Korea. So those are the kind of push drivers in the decarbonization what we are seeing right now. Now, if we talk about your pull drivers, we have also observed that over a period of time, society has become more aware, more vigilant, more cautious about the environmental factor, and somehow it's really a positive shift and enabling those push elements as well, because those push elements need a proper massage and proper balancing and support from the society as well. Now, that's where if you really look into that, the new generation is pretty much aware of and asking for the cleaner energy, more efficient, and certainly as they are the customer, they always look for cost-effective energy options as well. Now, in this entire scenario, be it a pull element or a push element we are talking about, I think one thing in the entire decarbonization efforts across the globe, and specifically if we are talking about Asian countries, um, the key element is the required funding and also the global leaders positioning over here, and those key element are pretty much vital over here. um, Historically, if we see, since this agenda becomes really big, we have seen the Paris Agreement coming into place, different forums coming into place to support this entire agenda. But still, the investments are not going as we targeted. Now, if I talk about Asia, entire Asia, means our, if I'm not wrong, as of now, on a yearly basis, we are investing is we are investing approximately $840 billion. However, the actual requirement is approximately $2.5 trillion. So you see, there is a huge difference over here, which definitely affect the total agenda. And if you look into only the Southeast Asian countries, and trust me, means the required investment is way high. So it's a great cause. Entire industry is seeing things are happening. We are putting a lot of efforts in that, but there are many elements, interconnected elements, apart from the silo elements, which are influencing. And certainly over a period of time, we see that these were still keep on evolving, and people will put effort. But at the same time, I think we need to start putting more effort if we are really serious about the decarbonization of the industry and looking for a clean energy. Again, I see that there is a good intent, and there are good potentials in the drivers from the multiple elements from the society. But still, we are way behind the target, and I think we should look for more.
That's a very comprehensive overview of the macro drivers. Now let's zoom into on how technology can support these efforts. Specifically, what role can digitalization and AI play in optimizing energy efficiency and reducing emissions within complex downstream operations?
I think it's quite another interesting element, because as and when you talk about decarbonization, we always connect this with the digitalization and the technology part. Which, if I have to answer in just one word, I'll say indispensable. I mean, it's vital. We need to keep in mind the way industry has evolved over a period of time. Today, digitalization is not a luxury. It's not that you are doing a great thing, but it becomes a kind of basic need. And if you want to stay in game, digitalization is the must. Because if you really see the kind of technologies and the solutions which are there in the market, and how it's making the players more competitive, it plays a very transformative role in the energy efficiency and the emission reduction. By leveraging your advanced technologies, be you call it the AI, ML, IoT, blockchain, robotics, drones, digital twin, means you name it, you have it, which certainly can help us in terms of your operational optimization. It can support us on detecting the leak on time, or proactively we can detect those leaks. It can also help us on the improving the efficiency, enabling our cleaner energy pathways, then improving our regulatory compliance, ESG reporting, carbon industry tracking, and many more. I mean, the offerings coming from the industry is huge. So in a way, I think it's a great enabler for our overall decarbonization agenda. And I do feel the organizations who are early birds are taking benefit out of that. At the same time, my advocacy and urge to every organization that we should explore this well in advance before it's too late, because for every business, the competitiveness is really important. Now, when I'm talking about the different technologies and how it can enable us in terms of energy efficiency or reducing the emission is concerned, let's see if we are looking for real-time monitoring of the equipment or emission. We are talking about leak detection, for example, methane or flaring reduction kind of a thing. Then our IoT sensors are quite effective and plays an important role in the process optimization, your predictive analytics for the cuts fuel use. You're optimizing the energy or energy intensive processes or compressor controls. Your artificial intelligence and machine learning is doing a great job. Even for the fleet electrification, our AI driven solutions are doing great. Now, we also have seen a great use of digital twins, where your virtual models helping us in terms of assessing our assets and the processes in a way of simulations, which definitely help us in terms of minimizing our emissions and the downtime. Means if we are looking for emission and the carbon tracking to enhance the transparency or traceability, then blockchain-based reporting is marvelous. Even your cloud computing is doing a great job in this way. Then you have your robotics and the drones, which support us in the remote monitoring, especially for our pipelines and offshore grids, which help us to reduce extra cost and get the early warnings before it makes any negative impact on our environment. And those early risk detection help us to be more proactive and up on the game. I mean, we have seen. I can quote examples of companies like BP or Shell. They are using this in a great way across the globe for all their assets. Then there are satellite-based detection solutions as well. Again, a great evolution. I mean, we have the digital platforms which can help us to track our CO2 flows, monitor injections. I mean, a great thing. Last but not the least, one of the basic need of any refinery from a digitalization perspective is having an EMS system. Means we know that we always want our EII to be the best. If and also the players who are using the Solomon report, they also want to be on best of the quartile for EII, and this EMS system can certainly support. So here, if you really see, if I Shamala, if I keep on talking about the multiple solutions and the value addition, I think it's a long laundry list I can keep on talking about. However, before I end, my word of caution on this digitalization or artificial intelligence enabling our decarbonization agenda is that we need to have a proper strategy, we need to have a proper roadmap, we need to have a proper change management plan. It's not that we buy a solution and put the solution in place and expect things are going to happen automatically. No, we need to sit together in any organization or even from a region perspective as well, and we need to build up a proper roadmap, because digitalization is an investment. And when we are making an investment, there has to be a cost benefit analysis we need to go for. So, but altogether, there is no alternative for anyone. Earlier the better, no doubt about that. If people want to wait and see the success of the use cases or any solution, that's also could be a strategy to go for. But at the end of the day, either today or tomorrow, this digitalization has to happen, and we need to go for, and connecting it with the decarbonization, I think that is going to enable the overall journey and our efforts to achieve our targets.
Yeah, it's very clear that technology is a vital enabler. Yeah, however, policy often sets the stage for technology adoption and investment. So, from your perspective, what kind of policy frameworks and incentives do you believe are necessary at a national and regional level to accelerate decarbonization within the Asian downstream sector and to ensure a level playing field?
Right. Thanks for the question. I think many countries have already started putting up these policy frameworks and incentivization. I mean, we know that we have certain policies in India, China, Indonesia, if I'm not wrong, Singapore definitely is there. So many countries have already started doing within Asia, but I think from a customer perspective, I can talk about in terms of evaluating those policies, and I think more we can look for, or we can explore. The first thing is that the policies needs to be industry friendly. We need to understand that your downstream business is quite challenging business. I'm not saying the other businesses are not challenging, but see, downstream business has different level of challenges what we have faced in past, and still we are still facing. So keeping that in mind, I think we from a government perspective, we need to look into those policies in the framework which are user friendly and help to create the right environment. Now, couple of them we already know. Those are the basic one. For example, having the carbon pricing mechanism, or in terms of implementing your carbon tax or cap and trade system. But again, we need to have these policies in a way that it should promote the investment rather than becomes a kind of a burden for the businesses. Then again, when we are talking about policies and the frameworks, there has to be a proper, clearly defined standards, regulatory standards, and the mandates, which are easy to follow as well. Because at times it's been observed that we put the policies and the standards and the mandates in place, but that creates more red tape work for the organizations, and difficult to follow as well. Then subsidies and the tax incentives. I mean, we know that to promote EVs, that's something which is really happening, which is a good thing, especially on the decarbonization perspective. But I think there is a lot to do on the subsidies and the tax incentivization is concerned. Maybe need to look for more low interest loans, some direct subsidies on the investment we can talk about, especially those organizations who are focusing on carbon reducing technologies. We can promote startups, or having policies to promote startups, to promote those technologies, or even we can look for some tax breaks as well. Now, not only on the monetary part, but I think at the same time, we need to have a proper policies and the framework which also promote your public and a private sector partnership, because that's really important. Um, because your government, your public sector can put the agenda, your governments can put the agenda, but they also need to understand there has to be a collaborative effort in these two sectors. Then again, a proper incentivization or proper policies and framework to support more R&D and innovation, especially where things are more focused on um, renewable energy integration kind of a thing, or alternate feedstock kind of a thing. So we need to have a very clear policies on those kind of R&D and innovations. And at the end, it's always good to have a transparency and proper reporting mechanism as well. So there has to be a proper policies and the procedure and the framework on how to bring the transparency and the reporting requirement, making people's life easy. Now, if you really see the countries who have already started, uh, a couple of things are already in place. Certainly, doesn't mean those things are perfect. There are area for improvements in that. But according to me, what more your countries or this region can look for is there a possibility to make your 100% clean power mandate policy sort of a thing, or having feed-in tariffs or CFDs, where we can ensure some sort of a guaranteed prices on the renewable energy, so that give more confidence and ensure some profitability to the organizations and to attract more investment. Not only pushing people or incentivize them on the products what they are producing, but at the same time the products what they are consuming. Uh, we know that biofuels is one of them, but we can also look for something like a green steel or some SEAM standards sort of a thing if someone is going through a kind of a construction. So any products what they are consuming on which is more like a green certified. So how we can incentivize those customer on those consumptions, then carbon framing credits, and also how we educate and create more awareness in our youth. So I think that's another way where we can explore the possibility of having a policies and the framework from a public and a private sectors both, to educate people more and bring more awareness. Again, as I said in my first, when we started talking about decarbonization, there has to be a push and a pull balancing. Now, at a country level, every country can certainly look into that. But when we are talking about at a region level, I think we need to look for more harmonization of the standards or the policies what countries are going to put across. Now, that's really important because now, understanding the fact every downstream business is a competitor of another one, but we also need to understand the fact in this competition and the agenda of our decarbonization, the market should not be distorted. So to have a fair competition, we can create some sort of harmonization across the standards. So for that, we can have some policy in the framework on having some collaborative forums, some group of think tanks, and I'm not saying this is only apply at a public sector level or government level. This, I think, applies to the private players as well. And then at the same time, the foreign policies of the different countries can certainly explore these opportunities and use the existing forums what we have, like we have ASIN forums are there, and there are multiple other forums as well where different countries are part of that. So can use those forums, but at the same time we can create new forums specifically for this purpose. Now, having said that, again, ultimately, uh, it's something the policy and frameworks plays an important role, but we need to keep in mind that any policy, any framework is not going to be successful until unless we get a support from the industry players as well. So just having policies, procedures, or frameworks are not going to make things successful. Having though I talked about many opportunities, or we can introduce more policies as well. But again, onboarding people as part of the change management, or at the same time managing the expected resistance from our businesses, and also to create our thriving society, thriving community is going to play an important role.
Mm.
And every government can think from that perspective while creating the policies and the deployment of the policies.
Yeah. Policy certainly plays a critical role, and the nuances vary greatly across the region as well. So, speaking of regional specifics, and given your experience in Vietnam, are there any unique opportunities or particular challenges that Vietnam's refining and petrochemical industry might face in its decarbonization journey?
Yeah, it is. It is. See, uh, yes, I think Vietnam has its own pros and cons, be it from your positioning in the geography, and the same time positioning in the trade, the political environment, as well as the industrial environment. So I think it has its own dynamics, I would say, and unique opportunities and the challenges. Now, if you look from an opportunities perspective, Shamala, um, the petrochemical or refineries, refineries and the petrochemical are infrastructurally quite new in Vietnam. The oldest refinery over here is the Binson refinery, which I'm not wrong, operationalized back in 2009 or something. So again, not too old. So if you really see if you're linking with the decarbonization, and if you're linking with the technologies and trying new things perspective, newer the infrastructure, better it is. So this I'll call it as a young infrastructure, is a great opportunity for Vietnam, where integrating the new technologies, energy efficiencies, emission control systems are going to be comparatively easy if we talk about any infrastructure which was built or operative from last 50 years or 40 years, and so on and so forth. Then at the same time, that it has a great renewable potential, I would say. Now, if you really see, Vietnam as a country has a significant potential on the solar and the wind energy. Even Vietnam government has already started putting more stress on renewable energy as well, and they build up their roadmap as well. Now, if you have energy coming from solar and the wind, that certainly can support in the electrification industrial part as well. Then, if you really see, your from a being a sorry being an agriculture country, again, it has immense amount of resources for the alternate energy. I'm not talking about solar or wind. I'm talking about alternate feedstock here. So there are enough resources for ethanol. At the same time, your first and second generation biofuels, even your green hydrogen, and those are the great opportunities certainly can look for. Now, at the same time, we know that Vietnam government has also made their commitment net zero by 2050. Now, compared to any other countries, I mean, it still looks quite aggressive, but the commitment is commitment, which means which shows the seriousness of the government in the decarbonization for under in Vietnam, and especially under refinery and petrochemical business over here. At the same time, I think we can also consider Vietnam's regional trade positioning, because if you really see in the Asian countries or Asian countries altogether, your demand is increasing. When the demand is increasing, definitely we need to have a good supply. When we are talking about a good supply, then definitely, if Vietnam start adopting your green standards and become early birds, then it will certainly give them a competitive advantage as well. And having those kind of businesses in Vietnam can give a competitive advantage to our Vietnam petrochemical exporters as well. And as of now, we already know that from a cleaner fuel perspective, government has already mandate on E5, but though that E5 is just 5% ethanol blend, but at the same time, government is aiming to go for E10 and B10 in coming years as well. So I think there is an immense opportunities we can look for, but at the same time, opportunities never comes up without challenges. In a current situation, still we see heavy resilience on heavy reliance on your fossil fuel is still there. I mean, because things are evolving. I mean, from a technology perspective, we know that technology access and it has a huge cost involved, especially on the decarbonization technologies. So the domestic expertise your is limited and progressing really slow. So that's really one of another challenge. Though government has a commitment, but if you really say that there is already a detailed implementation plan from the government, or incentivization, enforcement mechanism, the other policies we just talked about, those are already in place. The answer is no, because it's still under development. At the same time, though it's a young infrastructure from a refinery and petrochemical perspective, but if you talk from a grid capacity or a storage solution sort of a thing, then things are still evolving. On the biofuels, again, there is huge scope. As I said, it's one of the agriculture country and have immense amount of resources. But if you really talk about whether there is a right amount of push to that industry, if we have a consistency in the mandate, or also addressing the challenges of the biofuel supply chain, or even pull from the public. So I think those are the areas where still work needs to be done. But yes, altogether, we can say for Vietnam, it's a good story if we have a right focus and the right efforts at the right time and place. Again, it certainly come up as a great success story in future.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful regarding Vietnam's unique position. So finally, maybe let's discuss the long-term outlook. So what will the refineries and petrochemical plants of the future look like?
Future. So let's how long term we want to talk about. Frankly speaking, I have a mixed feelings on the future at this point in time. And trust me, these feelings are keep on changing day by day. But certain things are still certain and fixed kind of a thing. If you talk about a future, say from 4 to 5 years from now, my personal assessment is going to be bumpy. And those bumps are more coming from the geopolitical situation, the tensions in the Middle East region, the tension which is still not resolved between Russia and Ukraine, and at the same time, the industrial stress coming from Trump 2.0. And that's where, in the current situation, things doesn't look really positive. Though at times your prices become go for backwardation. At times it started showing some positive results, but I think that uncertainty is creating some sort of nervousness in the investors to putting more money. And I do feel that at least for 2 to 3 years is going to be the same. It may go on till 4 to 5 years. Now, this is my personal assessment for the near future, if I can talk about it. But at the same time, I think Even though I say it's bumpy, but at the same time there is a great opportunity as well, because when we are going through this kind of time period, it also gives us an opportunity to make certain changes in our own organizations, in the industry as well. And my personal advocacy is that this is the right time to spend more efforts and time to convert your people a great assets for future, and at the same time start investing more in technology, which is certainly your digitalization, because that's something we can certainly look for. Um, but if we are talking about more long term, then I think uh, from a from a decarbonization perspective, again, um, uh, quote unquote, if we see that the global leaders' decisions becomes more firm and more collaborative, then we can certainly see a great efforts getting into this, and a great transformation from a cleaner energy perspective. In a long term, we can certainly see that more digitalization happening in refinery and petrochemical plants. At the same time, we also see from a business perspective, now I'm talking about, that yes, there is going to be a continuous demand of the fossil fuel. There won't be any 100% replacement. We need to agree the fact the fossil fuel demand still be there, though it might reduce. But if we talk about petchem, the petchem demand will increase.
Thank you so much, Kapil, for sharing your invaluable insights today. We look forward to hearing more from you at the Asian Downstream Summit. To gain more insights from Kapil, join us this October 29 and 30th as he shares his views on the debate discussing if the new trade and climate policies of the US will significantly undermine the downstream competitiveness of Asia's economies.